to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in what dreams may come once we shuffle off this mortal coil must give us pause. COBRA!
Technically, G.I. Joe does not exist, but if it did, it'd be comprised of the top men and women from the best military units in the world. When all else fails, we don't.
We took a whole look at all the brands that we had and how could we reinvent the company through the reinvention, reimagination, recreation of our brands. And of course, motion pictures are right there at top of mind. So we got into that whole process.
Ready, and action!
As Steve Summers came on board, it really took on speed because as he began to understand the G.I. Joe versus Cobra story, he got very excited, and that really helped us to propel the movie.
When I was a kid, I grew up with a 12-inch G.I. Joe. I played with that a lot because there's all different kinds of costumes and this and that in different eras. And then I kind of, I grew up and out of it. And when they came to me about G.I. Joe, I kind of thought, well, I don't know if I have any ideas pertaining to that particular toy. And then my assistant, my producing partner's assistant, who are a little younger than I, they said, no, you don't understand. In 1983, they changed it to these characters. And I really fell in love with this new era of G.I. Joe. I just thought, oh, this is spectacular. It takes place, all around the world. It's just a really unique world with so many visually interesting characters. And so that's what kind of brought me into the whole thing.
G.I. Joe is the code name for America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force. Its purpose, to defend human freedom against COBRA, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
We really wanted to introduce everyone to the G.I. Joe versus Cobra fantasy because we felt that was the right way to go for the movie. It was much more of a comic book movie, much more of an all-audience movie, and it was really there in the comic books.
Larry created a lot of this stuff, and so I wanted to make sure he was happy with it all, and he was looking it over everything and gave us a lot of good advice, and so that the core fans would be happy with it.
Fans are always in abject fear that their precious thing will be trampled in the mud. What struck me about the story or the script was that, I like these characters.
When I was first asked to do G.I. Joe, I got the Bibles, basically, from Hasbro, then got a hold of all the comics, ran through all the great Larry Hama comics, and, just found all these amazing stories and, cool gadgets and, wonderful set pieces. So I found in one of the comics these nanomites and hit upon that as that's a very G.I. Joe thing, let's use that. And then the rest was all character stuff, let the characters interact, because that's what you really care about at the end.
There's all these great relationships because they never killed anybody off. It went on for years and years, and everybody got to meet each other, and there's all these, it's like a giant soap opera. And so it was just really fun because you get to take all these interesting relationships, characters, ideas, and now my job was to bring it forward and make it real.
The process itself has been amazing because the movie was written with very short prep, and then Steven basically throughout the period of filming had to be on his toes every day to figure out how am I completing this scene, what are we going to do in this scene, and every day a plethora of ideas were thrown at us.
You can't do this wrong. I told Steven, look, if my life is threatened by these comic book people, I'm gonna whoop your ass. So you got to do this right.
Well, the key, what I wanted to do is I knew there's a great fan base for G.I. Joe, but there's also far more people who don't know anything about it. And so my job was to make a movie that the fans would love, but everybody else would love as well.
It's the first day of filming. Very excited. Trying to get a movie of this size. Hey, how you doing? Morning. Hey, trying to get a movie of this size made, or to the starting gate is like lifting a dead elephant uphill.
I think one of Steve's great strengths as a director is his understanding that filmmaking is a very collaborative art. He knows that he has a lot of people that are very, very skilled in lots of specialized ways that can bring so much to the table.
A lot of care has gone into this movie, even though we had to rush this movie, which normally on a movie like this, we prep for minimum 30 weeks. On this one, I think we had 12 and a half weeks.
And this is a manufacture movie, which means we're making the props, we're making the costumes. It's not like we're just going and buying the stuff off the racks, So you got to cast the actors, and then in most cases, you have to do a body scan and a body sculpt, and you know, make their costumes.
As you can see, it's pretty tight leather. Can't really bend too well in it.
Can you see the breathing? Yeah, you can, yeah.
In March or so, we had probably about 1,200 different crew people in various positions working. I would say at the peak of production, we had units shooting in Los Angeles, Prague, Norway, 3 different time zones, 3 different countries, and just trying to sort of hold it all together and make sure it was all happening.
Here, look at this. Look what we got here. Sets and more sets. I love sets because it just gives you so many ideas as to how to shoot the scene. The bigger the set, the more fun it is for me.
There's about 135 sets in the movie. There's been just a tremendous amount of design in this movie. One of the really interesting things I found from a design standpoint was looking at all the research and looking at all the comic books and all that stuff. It seemed like the Cobras had the kind of the slick stuff, and the Joes stuff was a little bit more utilitarian, a little bit more everyday military.
We do have a lot of big sets, and what's interesting about this movie is that we also have a lot of small modular sets that will be expanded in post-production through digital means. So we've kind of mixed it up a lot on this movie, in fact, more than we have on other films.
I was really kind of blown away to the extent and the detail in which they built the hangar where the G.I. Joe base is. This thing was huge. Yeah, I mean, they got a lot of stuff going on in this.
We come in, and it is just acres of just sets, and as a scope of this movie goes, we are finishing sets as like the night before we shoot.
We will shoot that side first, and then
Which is green screen, right? And then while we're turning around here, if we get time to, I don't think we'll do this shot today. Probably do this tomorrow.
Okay. Cliff. Of course, we're gonna shoot it. Cliff's just
We're not. I bet you anything you like.
So yeah, how can I fight the AD? He just slows it right down. He just says, "Okay, we're not gonna shoot it."
Talk to you about.
Which one?
All right. What are we else are we gonna do this afternoon?
We were shooting in an ice cave, which clearly was not real ice, but it looked like it. It's this huge structure, and every day is something different. Every day is a different location.
One of the ones that was the most fun was the laser control room and laser control core, which it's part of the Cobra base where there's this big shaft, and Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow also have their final duel in this space. And it was really a fun set because it was about 5 stories high and fairly large, and there was a huge action sequence that takes place in it.
This is the particle acceleration set, where our evil villains are going to weaponize the warheads, which could eat all the metal on the planet.
What happened for me with a lot of these was we had to do them so quickly that we really didn't have much time to really think about it. We really had to go ahead as fast as we could, and sometimes as the sets would come to fruition, I would really be watching them very, very, very carefully, hoping that this is going to work out, and then the company would get there and the lighting would be done, and they'd photograph it and they'd say, you know, this looks really good. So it's been a whole series of good events like that.
And now we're going to blow up some more stuff. I have a very large appetite when it comes to filmmaking. I love big, it's fun.
It's a Steven Sommers movie, which means it gets bigger every day. And that's what I love working with Steven, because there's always stuff to do. There's a written word, a scene that's described, but bigger's better for Steven.
You know, like when you go to McDonald's and you want your fries supersized. Well, you know, Steven wants to summer-size everything. You know, we show him an explosion and make it bigger. You know.
But I mean, it's got to be big and it's got to be exciting virtually everywhere you look. There isn't a section of the film frame that isn't occupied by some excitement.
I seen a building blow up, and I got up from behind the curtain. I swear to God, I had an afro, and I think it singed all the way from the burning building.
I'm a fairly visual filmmaker. You know, you'll never catch me making movies about doctors or lawyers. I love to take people to places they've never seen before, to whole new worlds.
Everybody pull back! Pull back now!
It would be good. As a runner, so they could help.